Here with Moms for Here with Moms for Liberty. So you're telling me there's a new threat besides gender ideology, besides critical race theory. What's this third one?
So social emotional learning is basically the Trojan horse that allows critical race theory, that allows the critical queer theory, teaching our kids how to feel, teaching them about their feeling. Rather than parents paying for a therapist for their children, they let the teachers do it at school.
They talk about their feelings?
They talk about their feelings all the time, or they'll say, it's called formative conversations, and they'll say, so how can we show empathy? Let's say that we have...
So teaching, so empathy?
Okay, so if the word, let's say they have a word of the week, and the word of the week at my child's school was empathy. And the teacher started talking, how can we show empathy? And then she says, if you have a friend that has two moms, how can you have empathy? Well, my child comes home and says, Mom, there can be two moms. You know, and then these conversations leading to agreeing with them.
Here we go. Hello and welcome to the TransPositions. I'm your host, Miss Bumblebee, Bree McCune, and this is Stephanie Helms, my co-host, and Ember Belrad, my other co-host. And today we have a guest filling our fourth slot on the board today. This is Nominal Naomi. You may you may know her from recently dunking on Sharon Davies, which was fabulous. Yeah. So, when it comes to who you select for your people that you engage with, Naomi, I just got to ask, how do you decide? You just pick from the grossest person that you can
I
find?
mean, it kind of depends on who's actually willing to put themselves out there and debate like a real trans person instead of just staying in their echo chambers the whole time. But I had an invite to that Twitter space, and so I was like, let's show up and see what happens.
Yeah. So, do you got any debates coming up that we should hear about? I just want to give you the floor for just a second.
Don't think I have anything scheduled right now. I've been kind of on like a very loose like schedule lately, but there are things in the works. There are things in the works, I'll say.
On medical leave from the debate scene.
A little bit.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. But I invited you on today because there's these Project 2025 training videos. Initially, I had Dead Domain Jordan was supposed to come on too, but scheduling conflicts. So that's all right. We're going to tackle it without him because I've been sitting on this for too long. And I know Kaylin Conrad just did a great coverage of this language one that I thought that you ladies would love to pick apart. So these are like leaked training videos.
Nice.
Surprise me, Bree. I haven't watched it at all, so
yeah, this is fresh to me too. So
yeah,
hell yeah.
This is we'll just pretend it's all new to everybody, right?
So the background story for anybody who isn't familiar, hasn't seen some of the political debaters covering it and whatnot. ProPublica got their hands on 14 hours of training videos for Project 2025. And it's fantastic.
And I think we should probably, is there a link that they can donate to ProPublica? Because, they should give them some love if you can. That's a great haul. I'm going to drop this in the live chat here. There we go. Yeah, all right. So without further ado, because this thing's kind of long, I don't know how much we're going to get into it. It's like 45 minutes long. I don't think we'll get through the whole thing. At least we won't get through the whole thing with Ember, which is kind of...
No. Remember, the formula for reviews is the video length times the number of reviewers plus one. So that would be a 3-hour show right there.
Yeah, we're not getting through this, but we'll see how much we can get through. And I will speed it up from the get-go to 1.25 just to maybe offset some of that. All right, here we go. All right, so you got ProPublica publishing this video unedited. The Heritage Foundation did not respond to requests.
Hi, I'm Katie Sullivan, and just a normal American woman. But to the left, that makes me a cisgendered ethno-imperialist birthing person with pronouns she, her. Words like that are quite a
right
mouthful,
off the bat, this woman
American
can kiss
needs to
my
sit out
ass.
Seriously, like, we come from a society where you like, oh, I'm a white Anglo-Christian, or what is it, WASP? A white Anglo...
Anglo-Saxon
Protestant. And
yeah,
please,
there you go.
No wasp bashing. I
know
think I
you
won't
are.
be able to. I'm not strong enough.
You're my wasp queen.
I just love that she equates white with ethno-imperialism. In her mind, being a European-descended person means you are an imperialist. So that's fun.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to fix something real quick.
She's
here.
giving away the game already.
Sorry.
Crazy.
Sorry. Roll it.
It keeps kicking me back over to the different microphone and making it drop. Hold on.
Oh.
I'm so annoyed. That's
Live
right.
programming, folks.
Every freaking week, though, it does this to me. I'm getting tired of it. It's like, get your together, dude.
What is that seal in the background? Is that President of the United States? Is she like pretending to be in the Oval Office right now?
It sure looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like
I mean, it's out of focus, but it's got the right number of letters. I love how she's got the giant cross as like her only jewelry. Like, trust me, I'm Christian. Believe me.
Yeah.
Symbolism is important for these people.
Well, it's all about, I guess, Christian nationalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the eyes of many in the
There we
world,
go.
this every
Well,
four-year ceremony we accept as normal is nothing less than a miracle.
In America, we understand that a nation is only living as long as it is striving.
Boy.
Only a
We're
few
gonna cancel all the
generations
elections.
have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger.
This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper.
Whether we go forward together with
How
courage
long is
or
this
turn back
intro
the policies
thing?
that weakened our economy, diminished our leadership in the world, America's future will be in your hands.
Okay.
They spent a lot of money on that stock footage.
Right, I'm worried that the music's gonna get us pulled down on that intro though, because I can't see the Heritage Foundation not being cheap on what music that they use, right?
Well, that's the thing, is if it's a custom track, it won't be in YouTube's Content ID.
Yo, transition project? Whoa.
Right?
Bethany, are your children afraid?
Giving up the game. All right, so we got Bethany Cosma, former Deputy Chief of Staff, USAID.
Monsters in the attic,
Agency
under the
for
bed.
International
Yeah, they
Development.
have been, but we always tell them that they do not exist.
Today we have news. There are monsters in Uncle Sam's attic.
It's the worst.
No.
We're the monsters, guys. Aren't we scary?
Right.
Show them your claws.
Words, phrases, definitions that are used, which may look like one thing, but absolutely mean another. And it is scary.
During this
Oh,
training,
they would know
we
about
will
that, wouldn't
identify
they?
the problem, discuss examples from our time in the federal government, as well as the 5 cross-cutting principles of the current administration. We will teach you how to unwind the words and phrases that have been so artfully layered into every document in the federal government. You can do this in any role at any level of
Crazy how they
seniority.
can't call it dog whistling because that's what they do.
I was telling Steph, I was like, this is newspeak, because
Yeah,
they
I
go
was
through.
just thinking that.
You can't
Control
say
the
this
language.
word. You can't say that word. You can't say this word. We need to say these words instead. They're dividing our language. It's crazy.
This training will prepare you to make changes and fast. The left continually pivots and assaults definitions and phrases. They twist words and phrases to support subconscious acceptance of a philosophy that was rejected or is against the grain of human existence. Like, what is...
Hell yeah, I'm against the grain of human existence. That's what I'm all about. It's like it's 2024. We don't have to follow.
Well,
we can customize
Coming
our
from
bodies
death
now.
cultists. My goodness. I mean, remember,
Speaking-
the core of Christian nationalism is the Seven Mountains Dominionism, which is a fundamentally accelerationist enterprise. These people are literally trying to bring about the end of the world. They think that's what will bring Jesus back.
Yeah, and I don't think we should be
The
putting
fuck?
them in charge of anything if that's their goal. Like, let's end the world. Yeah, let's put these people in charge of our future. And then you got, I don't this off topic a bit, but today I heard Charlie Kirk was saying that about, like, people without kids and stuff don't care about the future. People who are waiting for Jesus to come back don't care about the future.
Mm-hmm.
what I found interesting about this one little comment was that it's automatically, basically dehumanizing people that don't agree with them, rejected by humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, come on. That's laying out the agenda right there. I mean, it's and they're about to go in. From what this sounds like, they're about to go into exactly how we're doing that. But
Yeah, yeah, it's funny because they're going to police
it's the
language by
exact
explaining how it
opposite
works.
of you know, it's like, I'm not going to try to dehumanize these people. I believe that they're tragically human and have tragically bad ideas. And so I don't, but right off the bat, it's a conversation stopper. We're not going to talk to these people. We're going to attack them and attack their humanity right from the jump.
Yeah. Well, there's othering from the very beginning. I was already the left did this, you know.
What is a woman? Perhaps the most effective tool the left
what a
wields.
point to start on. What is a woman? That's been their battle cry.
Watch how the right wing crumbles when you ask them what a chair is. Unbelievable.
You know, it's funny you mention that, because I was just watching a video today that covered your video about conservatives being confused about chairs. I can't remember who the hell it was that was covering it, though.
Well, the chairs, well, that's Graham Linehan's.
Yeah, it was Graham's tweet, but
Yeah.
Naomi made a video saying, you know, conservatives are awfully confused. They don't know what a woman is. They don't know what a chair is. What are we to make of the world today?
Yeah. Did somebody dunk on Naomi?
Oh, it was
never,
it was
never.
autogynephilia guy, Ray.
Oh, is that Ray Williams?
Blanchard?
No, it's like Ray
No,
Williams
not
Johnson or
Blanchard.
something like that. Ray Johnson Williams.
You know,
Something
this
like that,
transitioner.
yeah.
No,
I think
like,
you'd get extra points if you got Blanchard himself to dunk on you. I think
That would-
Oh,
that
he
would-
is
that
a
would be a
huge
time.
Blanchardite,
It's like
though.
well, did Blanchard even stand by freaking autogynephilia after it was reviewed? He stood
Oh,
by it.
Blanchard's still on it. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, he's still on it. He's still
'Cause
on that kick.
it's like not a thing.
He and him and J. Michael Bailey. These guys. That shit came out when I was transitioning. Right, came out almost exactly at that
turn of the
time. You know,
century, yeah.
right around 1996, 7, 8 in that time frame. And The Man Who Would Be Queen was published, and that was the topic of conversation that we had going on amongst one another. It's like, can you believe this garbage? You know, and you know, to see it revived with the
turfs,
with the advent of this particular more virulent transphobia. I mean, it just blows your mind. It's won't this shit go away?
I do enjoy how much the transphobes counter each other all the damn time. Like, you know, Helen Joyce, she's been a busy lady lately since every other transphobe has had to stop tweeting. She's making all the appearances.
That? Oh, no.
Who knows? It's a mystery.
What's wrong,
But,
GK?
she got asked in an interview recently, you know, with the resurgence in public awareness of autogynephilia, what her thoughts on it were. And the one thing I like about Helen is as much as she's full of shit, when she thinks the people she's talking to are full of shit, she'll say so to them. And she was like, it doesn't make any damn sense. Like, if you're sexually attracted to yourself as a woman and you start transitioning, during that period where your hormones are shifting over, your sex drive disappears. And then you're no longer attracted to anything. So why the fuck would you continue to transition?
Right. It's not. It's an identity thing.
It's also untrue.
And silly. It's kind of silly. Just.
Is their ability to engage in constant subliminal advertising through their narrative, words, and phrases. Marxism became socialism, then democratic socialism, and is now represented by the terms social justice and equity. This is perhaps the most...
Communism is equity, basically. DEI is just equity and communism.
We're 3 generations down into neoconservatism, and you can really tell.
Well,
because when Reagan was on the stage, socialism meant racial equality. When they said socialism, they meant something very different from what economists meant. But now she thinks that it's Marxism light, apparently.
Yes, it's McCarthyism, right? I mean, they call Kamala Harris a communist.
What's the quote? It's like socialism is when the government does stuff, and communism is when the government does a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Or government does stuff I don't like.
Scary of all.
Katie, what brings to mind is the quote, "He who controls the language rules the world." It's attributed to Joseph Stalin and other tyrants. And George Orwell stated, "He
And
who
others.
controls language controls..."
How long do y'all think we're going to get into this video before Hitler is brought up? How?
I don't know if we're going on a Stalin angle, and they may stick with it because, you know, communism is scary or something.
Yeah, but the Nazis were communists too. Or socialist. It's right there in the name, SS, right?
Yeah. That's how that works.
Just like how North Korea's a republic, or the China's a republic, and
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And North Korea's democratic.
Culture. Even more, Hitler and others lived by the creed.
There
if
it is.
If you repeat a lie often enough, people will believe it. Without doubt.
I watched it this far. I knew that was there, but still.
Oh, you cheated. You already.
Yeah. Well, got 4 minutes for Godwin. That's pretty good for a conservative training video.
It's true. Language is a powerful and often controlling tool.
Career bureaucrats and the left are also using language to change culture and gain more and more authority, thereby upsetting the balance
Wait, who are
of
these
power
people that talk about
envisioned
career
by our
bureaucrats? Like, isn't that their whole thing?
Right?
Like, my experience as a career bureaucrat will tell you.
And we're using language to change the culture, folks. Instead of, I guess, semaphore? No, that would be a language too, wouldn't it?
Well, we know
we should draw pictures in the dirt. That's how we should communicate.
You know how rigid language is, how they never change in their structure.
I've heard.
Yeah,
I've heard once a definition is in the dictionary, that's what it means forever.
To everyone.
Always. And in all languages even.
All languages.
This, in essence, weaponized language against the American people.
This training is vital to you as a political appointee. If there's one thing you take from this training, it is to know when you start your job
I'm going to bounce ahead a little bit.
Every word has before publishing or moving forward with any official or internal document.
All right, so now that we have identified the problem, let's give the viewers a taste of what we saw in the Trump administration. Bethany and I were both part of a coordinated effort in the Trump administration focused on trying to take back hijacked language and definitions across the United States government.
So they were doing exactly the thing they're accusing the left of doing.
Yeah, they're saying, we did this, so we know that people do this, so now we're saying they're doing it. Mm-hmm. We know it happens because we're the ones that did it.
So this is, did they both work for AID? What's AID?
I know the redheaded lady did. I don't know what the blonde lady with the glasses.
I wonder if one of them worked for HHS, because that's exactly what they did. The reason I got active, I was quite happily in a closet with better clothes from after going through the whole coming out process from like 2001 or so until 2018, at which point Trump's HHS decided to write into the Federal Register language defining sex as immutable and assigned at birth.
I like that.
And that got me going. I just I did a whole long post on Facebook and Twitter and told all my friends, look it, this is gonna hurt people like me. And this is gonna hurt your friend. I hope you do something about it. They never got it. They never managed to get that through. But they will. If they have the chance, they get back into power. That's one of the first things they'll do. They've promised to do that.
Oh yeah, they're already doing it in as many states as they can get away with it in.
Yeah, I was just gonna read. What I said I liked wasn't that the gross thing you just said. I was reading the conservatives, stop using your BS jargon, it offends me, and then also conservatives, speak conservatese. Yeah.
In the United Nations. From our experiences, we will teach you how to identify the left's progressive language, scrutinize career staff compositions for dangerous language, and how to combat their manipulative efforts.
Yeah, these like words can't hurt you types are gonna now tell us what language is dangerous. It wasn't dangerous. It's kind of like how they made cis a slur on Twitter, but you can still drop it in bomb apparently, according to Andrew Tate anyway.
Well, that's just free speech.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolute free speech.
I mean, that's how fascism works. Is you scream free speech while you censor everything you can.
Hey, Bree.
Ensuring clarity of
Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay to show Beaver on screen?
Nice.
Yeah, there you go. That's adorable. Is that an authentic Maine beaver?
I don't know. Could be.
You just, yeah.
Anyway.
definition and conservative intention. Bethany and I are going to give you some examples of what we mean by this need to always ensure clarity. But in no way are we able to foresee the future and anticipate how the progressive left will continue to co-opt even more words and definitions. We can tell you the words and phrases being used today, but by the time you enter the administration, these examples may be obsolete. This will help you spot.
You mean language might evolve, is what she's saying. Beware, language is going to evolve.
Oh, Brie, evolution's not real.
Crucial issue areas to pay close attention to. We do not know what they will be calling men and women by the time you begin your tenure with the administration.
Oh,
the left is trying to
Then why did you say
America
men and women?
and rebuild it in their own image by using the art of deception, and words and definitions are their weapon of choice. Remember, words change culture. Bethany, with your extensive experience with both domestic and international policy issues, and in light of your role in leadership positions at USAID, can you walk us through some examples of how the left uses words, weaponizes really, words and definitions? And if you could do that in a context...
You know what weaponized word? Woke.
Snowflake?
Yeah.
Of the cross-cutting issues that are identified in the mandate for leadership. And really, as we understand, the cross-cutting issues were identified because they are the pillars of the Biden administration. And so they've been layered into virtually every document in the federal.
Happy to, absolutely. The 5 topic areas for today's discussion are centered on women, children, and family, environment, human rights and border security, the gender cult, and equity. The first topic, women, children, and family.
Cult.
I work
All right, you guys, what
mention.
do y'all say we jump ahead to the gender cult chapter?
Sorry, women, you're not included in the gender cult, I guess.
Do we have a cult song?
I don't know. Let's jump. So we got 5
I mean, they're making this shit up. They got to tell us what our hymnal says. But yeah, men and women,
this
not
is what
genders.
I'm saying.
Nope.
Where do we get the gender cults?
All right, I'm getting my tits back out.
I wish they'd show you what, like, this was divided into chapters or something.
International issues and very closely followed the language presented at the United Nations. And I saw up close and personal how this indeed is true. Language is used to control culture. I'll never forget a conversation I had with the chief of staff at USAID. We are trying to provide alternative language for the highly controversial phrase comprehensive sexuality education, or CSE, which at the United Nations had come to mean not just typical sex education, but instead had been morphed into teaching and normalizing sex at very early ages, even as young as preschool.
What?
Yeah, that's not what that means. And also, what does she mean by normal sex education? Because as I recall, most of their constituencies are an abstinence-only sort. So what is normal? Is it don't? Okay, on to home ec. You know, what are we doing here? What are we talking about here?
I think that they decided it should end with an anatomy lesson. Like, this is the penis, and these are the testicles, and this is the labia, and this is the vulva, and all right, now let's move on.
It's so crazy that she's equating like any kind of sex education with like teaching kids how to have sex at like whatever age, because like the kind of comprehensive sex education model at preschool basically just be like stranger danger, like here's how to recognize if you're being abused.
Right, and this is the same
Is
narrative.
the person wearing a giant cross? Tell your parents.
This is the lives a TikTok angle, right? Of approaching these topics to just be outraged about the education process that we have in place for our schools. I can't imagine Oklahoma
everything is
has,
pornography.
can't imagine Oklahoma has too much left for their sex ed programs.
Well, I mean, they only have one textbook, and it's the Bible. So,
Yeah.
actually, there's quite a lot of sex. Come to think of it.
Yeah, good old Ryan Walters made sure that they learn about horse emissions, but they can't learn about human emissions.
And for girls who became pregnant, that abortion was a preferable method of birth control. Back to the conversation with the chief of staff. He suggested several alternatives, but each time I told him that, unfortunately, his recommended edit was also interpreted as CSE. Frustrated, he vented. They have literally co-opted the English language. And it was at that moment that I realized that the progressive left is controlling the language, redefining definitions, and by doing so, are ruling the world. On a positive note, despite all the
Hell
angst
yeah.
that we
rule the world,
Redefining
y'all.
definitions.
Yeah.
But also, we already rule the world. That's why, ostensibly, a new Republican administration is coming into office and needs these training videos. Because the left is so powerful. We're unstoppable. We rule the world. Fascism is so fun, isn't it?
Where we gotta be strong and weak at the same time.
Exactly.
we did succeed on that negotiation. DevEx published an article with the headline, "No Mention of Reproductive Rights in Declarations Out of G7 Development Ministerial." You can read more about this in the course materials section.
They celebrate taking reproductive rights away from the language. That's so crazy. How is that something to celebrate?
Yeah, have they read their own book? They're doing this for Project 2025, right? And they will become property. They're working towards their own actual enslavement. But yeah, okay, tell me more about how the left is evil. Go for it.
It's the green dress lady from The Handmaid's Tale, right? The green dress lady.
Aunt Lydia?
No.
Did you ever read the sequel?
I have not.
Oh, it's fascinating. There's a lot more to Aunt Lydia than you might think.
Can we squeeze 15 more minutes out of you, Amber?
Yeah.
Okay. She has an early shift on the East Coast, so she gets up before I'm going to bed, usually most days.
It's harsh, but...
Now, let's talk about the word abortion. The left got very creative years ago and started using different...
Come on.
Now, I always understood that climate change meant seasons. Our climate does change all the time. But
Oh,
of
my
course, that's
goodness.
not what's
We
meant by the
cannot
left.
go like 10
What do you
seconds
think
without
about
them saying
all of,
something
about the
fucking
left's words and
terminally
definitions?
stupid.
I always thought climate change was about seasons. She actually said that. That's like not a parody of what she said. Those words came out of her mouth.
I wonder if they realize that the Earth is round and that it's actually spring in the southern hemisphere right now. So does that mean we have two different
Steph,
climates?
Your globalist agenda counters the Bible, and I will have you know, this is the unchanging, inerrant word of the all-powerful, perfect goat herder, and it has never been translated.
Well, that's true.
It was written in English by Jesus himself.
I've been disappointed since the 1600s when they changed Guy from a man's name to generalize it to Guy Fawkes. It's like, how dare they appropriate these things? Those leftists, they've been working on this since Elizabethan times.
Definitions in the environment.
That's a great point, Katie. They don't stop. Climate change allegedly is everywhere. And if the American people elect a conservative president, the administration will. Don't care where you are in the administration, you will deal with the word gender.
Folks, did you know the climate is like all around the world?
The whole world's affected by climate? No way.
I know. It's like there's friggin' weather or something out there. I don't know. Wild.
Is sex assigned at birth. Now, I just told you to use the word sex, and you may think that sex assigned at birth, that sounds great. Well, actually, it's not. It's the left's attempt to change biological fact and to try to normalize their belief that biological sex can change. Unfortunately, many folks, including...
They made this before the Imani Khalif situation, though. So, where they draw the line on assigned at birth, they can be wrong. Apparently, if you look too masculine once you mature, it means that they were wrong to assign you female at birth at the hospital.
Well, the other funny thing is that the assigned sex at birth terminology was originally created for intersex people because we recognize that sometimes we assigned them incorrectly at birth.
Yeah, they're like internal.
And how did we learn that we assigned them incorrectly? Because we asked them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, it all falls apart. You know, it's like, well, I loved Dawkins' interview with Helen Joyce when they're going on about exceptions that prove the rule, no, the exceptions demolish the rule. You know, you've made this rule up, and it's an inadequate rule because it doesn't take into account the variety of the way human genes are expressed in the presence of hormones, and you know, all of this stuff. Those exceptions invalidate the argument. It's God, it's so frustrating.
It's a whole other rant, though.
Yeah,
I know.
Including solid conservatives, have accepted this and don't understand the danger in using this term. In fact, some conservatives have even taken this term and changed it slightly. Gender
it's the danger.
Mm-hmm. Those
angry.
naughty words are going to get you.
Help, I'm in danger.
This has at least got to be JP's sister. I'm telling you. It's Awaken with JP's sister.
Yo! I see it.
Thank you.
It's revealed at birth. The left is infiltrating our conservative organizations, Christian schools, and even churches. We must always be on guard. And when a new term is introduced, ask, what is the genesis for this new term and why was it introduced? If you see the term sex assigned at birth, delete it and replace it with biological sex. The next issue under gender is
not going to
pronouns.
work out.
Don't fall into the progressive left's trap in regard to pronouns.
Controlling the language is evil. Here's how to control the language.
Right. It's a whole video about how to do the proper newspeak and how they're trying to control the language.
We were always at war with East Asia.
All right. Here's the pronoun section I was hoping we'd get to before we lost you, Ember.
Use them in email signature blocks, on LinkedIn, and absolutely do not ask people what their pronouns are on your first day on the job. When I was at USAID, managers were giving training and were told that when they have new staff or have a staff meeting, they should go around the room and ask everyone what their pronouns are. Katie, if that happened to you, what would you do?
I think political appointees, Bethany, great question.
What would you do, Katie, if they ask you what your pronouns were? I've been in...
I mean, she answered that in the intro of the video. She's, an ethno-imperialist birth giver or such crap.
Yeah. Like, they act like... That's the Anna Kasparian BS. That nobody's saying you have to be called a birthing person. It's just saying that using the term birthing person will encompass trans men who might get pregnant as well.
I still just want to know who called Anna a birthing person and, set that whole thing off. I just need to know that.
That would be nice to know.
I think it was Benny.
As the months go on, I'm beginning to think it was somebody with money who convinced Anna that she was mad about
Prager.
Yeah.
The same way he got to Dave Rubin.
Yeah.
Need to expect
conspiracy theory, but it is what it is.
That they are going to be tested by clear staff the day they walk in. So that question, every political appointee should be prepared to deal with and answer, whether it's in a training. I don't think it'll take that long. It probably will be the first couple days on the job. So a political appointee.
Damn, that's a long answer. I just go with she, her.
They are empowered.
Right. If you tell me that you don't do pronouns, I'm gonna they them you for the rest of the time that we interact, because that's just impolite, I guess.
Empowered because they are absolutely put in the position, whatever level it is, in order to implement the president's agenda. And that is the business of a political appointee.
Have an agenda.
And should be the business of all federal employees. So the answer is simple.
I don't know what he's on
We're here
about.
to implement the president's priorities and agenda. We are not here to discuss pronouns.
The next topic is gender.
So how do I address you then? How do we address Karen if we don't know her pronouns?
Well,
Even though she gave them at the beginning to everybody else, but like if we were in the office with her, we wouldn't know how to approach Karen and say, or know which bathroom that Karen's allowed in. How do we even know?
Right. How are the genital police standing guard at the toilet stall door supposed to know what to look for?
We do it the way the Nazis did at the 1936 Olympics. We make her strip.
That seems much more dignified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Hold on to your dignity, right?
Affirming care.
Is that what the kids are calling it today?
Dignity, yeah.
Biden administration is promoting is absolutely infuriating, especially as for parents. We need to be protecting our children from these harmful, sterilizing puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and permanent genital mutilation. That's what.
Or JP has just gotten really good at his drag.
We were talking about pronouns.
Well,
we're just going right off the deep end.
Gender affirming care now.
Yes.
Yeah. Once you start using pronouns, it's like a gateway drug to crotch surgery.
If you're asked about hormones, you immediately got to start talking about genital mutilation. Like that's the only way.
Yeah.
It's true. We have to make the stakes clear. I just love it when these fucknuts complain about puberty blockers, though. Like, this is what I mean. Like the thing earlier. They're so far down the chain of made-up bullshit and nonsense, they don't even know the made-up bullshit and nonsense from the previous generation of assholes. The puberty blockers are for them. Youth transition, it's not a required step. That whole give the kid time shit. Their own data shows that 95% of kids who start puberty blockers continue onto HRT. It's a 5% desistance rate. We're just fine without using the damn things. If the kids want to go straight to hormones, they should fucking be able to. But because they raise a stink about what if they're wrong, what if they're going to change their mind, which their own data shows they pretty much don't, okay, fine. We'll give them puberty blockers. Give them a couple years to think about it, just so you can feel confident in their self-knowledge, Karen. So that's the compromise. We let puberty blockers be put into the process as a compromise with these fucknuts. And now they're mad about the puberty blockers because they don't realize that was for them in the first place. Fucking get rid of them. I'm glad to.
What gender affirming care is, not care at all. The idea that gender is fluid is evil, and it is a major initiative of the
evil.
It's evil.
See, I told you guys this was gonna be. Wow, this is
not.
good,
It's
right?
not gender neutral. It's gender evil.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
I got the fucking gender alignment chart out there.
I know. Well, we've got Finster being gender chaotic, so yeah, it makes sense. We need to like set up the exorcisms, something like that.
Evil.
of the Biden administration. It's layered into each and every office, document, task force, and funding priority. Perhaps most commonly known are the changes to Title IX, giving institutions, schools control over children and their gender preference, working against parents, mandating boys compete.
No. The schools don't have control over the children and their gender preference. And also, the Title IX extensions are the result of the conservative Supreme Court's decision about Title VII. It's just a consistency thing. But details.
See, that's why I wanted to make sure that you were still here when we got to this part.
Well, don't you know that gender's assigned at school? Like,
yes.
Yeah. Your kindergarten teacher says, what are we going to assign you? And you can change it. You can change it as needed.
Against girls. This is all done with words. Words matter. Change the words, change the culture. Now, Katie, I know that you've written several wonderful pieces on equity and you've done a lot of research on this. And the Biden administration has.
Who wants to bet Katie has the best takes on equity that you can imagine? I mean, just she's had such good takes about everything else so far. I can only.
I would just love it if Sharon over here, whatever the fuck her name is, she said, I'm sure you've written so many pieces about equity, yada yada yada. But fuck you, we're not covering them because you don't believe in equity, so I'm keeping all the time.
I think it's Katie and Sharon, and together they make Karen. I'm digging that. I'm really rolling with that. Like kind of a Captain Planet sort of thing that they do.
Oh, we're shipping them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those Scissor Sisters. Oh my gosh. For shame. That'd be like that Moms for Liberty lady.
Well, there ain't no tits on the radio, but the thing about these discussions that always tears at my heart is that the children affected are being left out. They're being othered. They're being made to feel like they're not who they are. And there aren't a tremendous number of people that are seriously discordant between their phenotype and their gender identity. Just not. Most kids develop a sense of gender identity when between the ages of 3 and 5. And most kids are perfectly comfortable with that. They don't have fancy words to describe it. They have boy, they have girl, but for the people that are uncomfortable with that, those kids are the ones that are getting left in the cold. And some of us know what that feels like. These buggers don't care how uncomfortable those children are, and what they want to do is make them even more uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's an important thing to keep in mind. Is there's that saying that every accusation by a conservative is actually a confession. When you're dealing with full-on fascists, everything they say, it's opposite day. Just invert it. When they say protect the children, they mean we're going to throw the children under the fucking bus or off the cliff. It's biblical. Smash them on the rocks. You know, whatever.
We're gonna make sure that the children that make us uncomfortable, that we can't deal with, that we can't wrap our heads around how it is possible for this to be a phenomenon. We're just simply going to deny that the phenomenon exists, and we're going to make those children pay and pay and pay throughout their lives, so that a child like me, born in 1953, has to wait, has to be taught self-loathing.
Yeah.
That took years of therapy to straighten out.
Straighten out.
I think it's cruel. I think it's absolutely cruel. And it's something that we've learned over the course of the last 70 years, that it is, in fact, cruel.
It's
and
intentionally
these people want to go back
cruel.
Like, well, I literally confessed that I was a girl when I was 3.5. So that's when it started, and it just, that was a bad education. I kept saying, hey.
Has infiltrated equity into everything. What are your thoughts on equity for the next administration?
Well, it's a little heart-stopping, Bethany, and it's going to take a lot to rewind where we are right now with this, with the left's definition of equity and how that's layered into all federal government documents. Roger Severino states it perfectly in the Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership book. Quote, under President Biden, the mission has shifted from promoting equity in everything we do, end quote, for the sake of, quote, populations sharing a particular characteristic, including race, sexuality, gender identification, ethnicity, and a host of other categories.
Does that sentence make sense?
What's the sentence?
That whole quote is a sentence. It's one big sentence. I don't think the first part connects to the second part.
Yeah, well, how is this not a call for an ethno-state? Just looking at it, just looking at this at face value, what's being said here. How is it not a call for an ethno-state? I don't, that they're disparaging here, right?
I don't know what the fuck they're asking for here.
Okay,
it's word salad.
Under President Biden, the mission has shifted to promoting equity in everything we do for the sake of populations sharing a particular characteristic, including race, sexuality, gender identification, ethnicity, and a host of other categories.
Like, what does that even mean?
I'm reminded of Bob Dylan's song "My Back Pages." It's not equity, but it might as well be equality. I said the words as if a wedding vow, but I was so much older then. I'm younger than that now. I mean, it is hard to fathom what these folks think they have lost in dismantling de jure segregation and doing at least a half-assed effort at dismantling de facto segregation. I mean, I would have to ask him, is today's Atlanta better or worse than Atlanta of 1954?
I'm also curious what they mean by the mission has shifted. What did it shift from? What was the equity? Was it an equity mission? What was it before it shifted? Like,
yeah, if it wasn't about
my guy,
if equity wasn't about race, sexuality, gender, and ethnicity, what was it about before it shifted to that?
Yeah, all I'm getting from this quote is like, equity is when diversity, therefore bad. Like that's
full stop, right?
Like I can be more succinct than them. Come on, guys.
Equity no longer means all men are created equal, the cornerstone of our U.S. Constitution, but rather now mandates the government to dispense with unequal treatment in order to...
Declaration of Independence?
They don't know their own founding documents. You haven't read your books, guys.
These are the people that wrap themselves in the American flag.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I'm impressed, honestly, that such a high-ranking member is so fucking ignorant. That's really impressive. They are so anti-intellectual. They're actually getting dumber.
She's also just like, equity no longer means something that equity has never meant. Like, what? What?
Yeah, when was the definition of equity? All men are created equal.
Never.
Never.
To achieve what they believe to be equal outcomes. This creates divisiveness, not equality. There is no unification under these principles. It is more of a competition of what class is more of a victim.
War
so
is
that
peace,
particular class
freedom
can
is
receive.
slavery.
No. Equity is division.
There's no equality under equality of outcomes. There's no equality in equality. What are you talking about? Up is down. We've always been at war with East Asia.
Keep that callback flowing.
Receive the preferential treatment being handed out and mandated by the Biden administration. It's important to note that the very first executive order that President Biden signed just moments after his inauguration on January 20th of 2021 had
What is it? What is it? What is the mandate? Let's hear some guesses.
Moments after his inauguration, standing in the rain, taking in the crowd, the interviews with nope, we're putting it all on hold. We have to run inside and sign an executive order real quick. We'll come back for the press after. What could possibly be that important? Taco Tuesday.
Yeah. The border, open border. There we go. Because we gotta import those tacos.
That's right.
Don't want white guy tacos, which really is offensive to people like Matt Walsh. Apparently, I don't know if y'all caught up on that or not.
I really miss the taco trucks on every corner, though. I really do.
I love taco truck.
I'm just loving all the conservatives being triggered little snowflokes about the white guy tacos.
I know, right?
That's just my. That's my retribution.
Oh yeah, I've almost forgot. Speaking of retribution, we're celebrating a fortnight of silence from J.K. Rowling today too. Been a full 14 days.
Love it. Do you suppose she's observing Transgender History Month?
I doubt it. But, we could all sing the Marseillaise, Vive la France, says I, It took an entire nation state to shut that woman up. Excuse me, madame, you make the tweet, we lock you up.
Who would have thought that a children's author would have taken the torch from Margaret Thatcher, right? All right, let's give them a couple more minutes here to try to make a case, and then we gotta say goodnight to Ember so she can get some sleep.
To do with equity. The left applauded as Biden announced his #1 priority, which is advancing racial equity and support for underserved communities throughout the federal government.
A horror.
As part of that executive order.
And they act like redlining doesn't exist, right? Like
it's the end of America.
If we don't redline,
that's why America doesn't exist anymore.
If we don't redline,
these same people that are like terrified of impoverished communities, like, do you want to do something about that? Maybe like fix some of the problems you're seeing? No, never.
Just keep it far away from me and mine, right?
Order. Within 90 days, every single agency had to file an equity action plan with the White House. If you want to see or view what you will be up against, take a look at those plans. They're all online under the Office of Management and Budget. Since that...
Don't most companies have that too? Private companies have to follow a diversity, equity, and inclusion protocol. I don't think I've ever worked...
Look, I did two videos on a panel for U.S. Sailing on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Like, I've never had a job where they didn't have some kind of clause that you signed about...
what?
Equity and inclusion.
So, you're never going to believe this, but what she just said about Biden's first executive order, she was lying. I know, it's a shock. That never happens. They're never just making up total bullshit. Biden's first executive order was to require masks on federal property. His second executive order was to reverse the Trump order taking us out of the World Health Organization. His third executive order was to set up a COVID response task force, the reverse of a Trump order. His fourth executive order extended foreclosure and eviction moratoriums. His fifth executive order froze student debt collection. We could go on, but there's not a fucking thing about equity in his entire first day.
All of that stuff is DEI, Ember. It's all
apparently.
It's all DEI driven. All right, I think we're about done with these ladies for now. With was it Karen and Sharon or something like that? Yeah. They were awful. They said stupid stuff. We laughed. They got more stupid stuff to say, so we might watch some more of their content later on, or I might watch some of their content over on Ember's channel with Ember, if she, There
you go.
If she wants to.
It's a distinct possibility.
I know we've discussed that previously. But there's more Ember to come. Just because Ember's leaving us live now doesn't mean there's no more Ember. We have
Yes, past Ember will be in the future.
about 25 minutes on this one, right? A little bit longer than that. We have 25 minutes of pre-recorded
25,
Ember.
26, something like that.
Yeah.
And this one, it's really fitting for Transgender History Month. I hope y'all enjoy.
Yeah. All right.
Cool.
Well, thank you
Cool.
for
Look
joining
forward to
us
it.
tonight, sweetie. And I'll see you in the side chat. We're gonna talk to Naomi real quick before we jump over to that, though, just for a little bit, because I know
for sure.
she's got stuff to do tonight too, I'm sure, and we don't want to hold her up all night. Though it's still early because she's on the West Coast. Still
I
early-
see. Time
early-ish.
travelers.
What is it, about 6? It's 6 o'clock, right? Yeah.
I'm not actually on the West Coast, but you
Oh,
know.
I thought you were. I swear I thought you were on the West Coast. Let's see. Yeah, don't listen to what I'm saying. Anyway, thank you for joining us, Ember. Yeah, do you have any closing words or anything, or?
There's so much. Just remember, whenever you hear motivated conservative, most conservatives are just smooth-brained people who just never question what they're told by their higher-ups. But when you encounter people like this, question literally everything, because every single fucking thing that comes out of their mouths is a lie. A quick Google search for Biden's first executive order. False. You know.
Yeah, that's true. But the things that aren't a lie is what they've written they are going to do in those 900 and some odd pages of Project 2025. They will do everything they promise they will do.
Yeah.
And almost every single thing is going to hurt somebody.
I think they renamed Project 2025 to like Project 47 or something like that, or
No, that's Trump's own internal version, Agenda 47.
Agenda
It's got
47.
a lot of the same things, but it has other things that are, so he can pretend that he's not affiliated with Project 2025.
Yeah,
It's very important.
since that got leaked, right?
No, he had it set up, I think as soon as he declared he was running. It was like the first thing on his website.
Oh, really? Okay, see,
Something like that.
I thought it was a spin-off of 2025 once they decided that was too toxic to put the Trump branding on, because the Product 2025
I don't think he cares
toxic.
about what's toxic. Like he's the guy saying grab them by the pussy. I'm going to shoot a guy on Fifth Avenue. He does not care what's toxic. I think he thinks it's a bonus for him. Like it's an extra selling feature or some shit.
If it's toxic, yeah. So some of his people it is. Some of his voting constituency it is. They really want a toxic asshole in charge that'll say awful things to people that they want to say when they bump into a trans person on the subway, or move in next door to a black person or whatever. The stuff that they want to spout off. Trump will say it out loud, and they get to say, "That's my guy." I could go on and on. All right, but I want to probe Naomi, so we're gonna move right along. All right, we will be back. We'll be back with an interview with Naomi in just a moment. All right.
Night, Ember. See you over the chat.
Yeah, have a nice one.
here we go. All right, thank you for sticking around for the Transpositions. Today we have an interview with Nominal Naomi. That's our debate sis on the scene. I think I first heard about you with Kelly Cadigan.
Oh, that's where a lot of people heard about me for the first time. Yeah, those like TikToks went super freaking viral when Kelly was on her weird conservative arc and then decided to debate me, which was an amazing debate. There's like a full 3-hour version on my YouTube channel, and then like she went full Klansman for some reason, like halfway through the debate, like fucking Ku Klux Kelly over there, like
she's like,
it's crazy, it's crazy.
Some
like,
people might have liked being slaves. You don't know. That's how the only world they knew. And she did that. I mean, she really laid on the California accent while she was going over that. It was, yeah. But Kelly has been on quite a roller coaster.
She had her agenda, like.
Yeah, we have covered her a bit over here, not too much, but because we're more new and she hasn't been up to anything interesting in a while. But she sometimes she'll all of a sudden have a based take out of nowhere. It's kind of crazy, but. She was going to be on Tim Pool's podcast, I guess, and then he called her, called it an open wound or something.
Yeah,
like
I think he was insulting like bottom surgery, and that's what caused her to quit out on him.
Yeah. Have you ever been invited on Tim Pool?
I have not, no, but I would love to. I would love to.
Tim, talk to Naomi. She'll talk to you. She'll debate these Tim Pool's not smart enough to understand what you're saying. When you start getting into all the different conditions and stuff.
I do know that I've been covered by Tim Pool once before. It was about the lactation discourse.
Oh yeah, Matt Walsh got on your ass about that too.
Yeah, I had a Matt Walsh episode on me about that one too.
And then you did the. And were you trolling with the cow bikini, or was that just something you like?
Oh, I'm just like autistic, and I think cows are pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But it worked.
And that happened like years before. Like I did some like cow lingerie pic. That was like years before.
Yeah, and they just made the connection. They didn't have anything to do at all with you lactating, which was amazing, by the way. That when you actually first hit the spotlight about the lactation thing, I'd reached out to you to see about getting you on like a show with my friend Phoebe. Because she does, you know, Phoebe J. Rose, she does transition stories and stuff, and I thought your lactation story would be great. I still think you should go on there if you get a chance to and talk to her. She's fabulous. She's extremely British and very haughty.
Yeah, it'd be super cool. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll let her know that you'd be interested, but I don't know how I got on the topic talking about Phoebe. I'm just gonna recommend my friends to you is what I'm gonna do for this interview. Sorry.
Always, yeah.
Like you need to go talk to
It's
this
just networking.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of relieved that I wasn't gonna have two big names because you're a big name girl, and I was.
Oh my gosh, no, I'm not. No,
you are though. I guess just
niche internet micro celebrity at best.
Yeah, but you were out. I mean, you were out and actually boots on the ground too. You were out campaigning a couple. How many weeks ago has it been?
Yeah, with the Jamal Bowen event. That was really cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, and you met Cyrus. Cyrus is a friend of the channel.
Lovely. Yeah, met Cyrus, met Vosh. A couple other like YouTuber video essayists were there. It was pretty cool.
Did you meet Stacy?
I did meet Stacy. Yeah.
I like Stacy. She's hilarious. Sometimes.
She is funny sometimes. I will give her that. I will fully give her that.
Yeah. There's been a few occasions where I didn't agree with what she was saying, but you know, for the most part, it's funny stuff. And I actually used Stacy as an example of one of her routines when I was talking about that shitty, what was his name? There's this guy on Twitter who Ian something. It was about having sex with trans women, and basically he was making fun of him the whole time. And he was like, claiming he's an ally. I swear I saw you in the comment section on that. I don't remember though. He was
I'm not fully remembering the story.
Ian Fidance, maybe. Yeah, he was really bad comedian, but I used Stacey K as an antipode to say this is how you tell that exact same joke without being fucking cringe. You know. So
Oh, I think I might vaguely remember what you're talking about. Yeah, a lot of like cis people don't really know how to tell jokes about trans people.
right, without
Yeah.
making trans people the butt of the joke.
Mhm.
But so have you ever considered doing stand up? You're pretty funny. I'm just asking.
I've thought about it. I've thought about it. I don't know, like building out a whole routine sounds pretty challenging. But I've thought about it. It sounds interesting.
Yeah. You could make it semi-educational. Slip some education in there too.
Oh, you know I love me some edutainment. Absolutely.
Yes. Speaking of edutainment, that seems to be the model of your channel, right? That's the main directive is to teach people. I mean, you do some social issue stuff too, of course, but you do talk a lot about gender and sex. So what got you into those topics? Obviously, being...
Yeah, well, I mean, like mostly I'm just like a huge nerd. Like I'm a PhD candidate. I love like really diving into the research on things that interest me, autism. And so like when I came out as trans, it was like, well, I have to know like everything about being trans, about like how medical transition actually impacts your sex and changes all of these characteristics and how it influences like so many areas throughout your entire body. And so I kind of became an expert in it from just diving into the research. And I was like, I bet I can like make a really cool impact by sharing a lot of this information on social media, and kind of found myself following on TikTok, got into the debate scene there, and it's kind of been a blur ever since, honestly.
Who's the worst person you've debated on this? I would say Andrew Wilson, but I don't know what you're
probably Andrew Wilson. Yeah, he's just malicious and like terrible, like complete fascist to his core.
Our friend, Mr.
vile.
Anderson calls him odious, and I like. No, yeah, he odious was the word he used for him. Yeah, and I think that works. But you've debated other people over there on the Crucible too, haven't you?
Yeah, I think I've done a couple over there on the Crucible.
Yeah, who was that?
There was one I got to debate JF Gariepi. That was a really fun one.
JF Gariepi.
Yeah, he's from like kind of the Gamergate era.
Is it Chad?
Who?
Are they a Chad? Yeah, I was just if the
total Chud. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So obviously Sharon Davies was probably the most recent one that you've
that was pretty cool
with. That was a really good conversation. I think you really held her or pinned her to the mat on.
It was amazing how I could decimate her entire worldview in just a couple of minutes, and just how flustered and triggered and just completely lost her composure she got within just a couple minutes, and then had to flee from the entire event afterwards. Like, it was amazing. It was amazing.
Would you be able to lay down that syllogism here, or is there too much to unpack?
I mean, the main thing was like she was really big into like sex testing for athletes, and she was proposing chromosome tests. And so I just went down the line of questioning, like, okay, well, how are these chromosome tests going to actually work? Like, do you think that it's everybody with XX chromosome should be in the female league, everybody with XY chromosome should be in the male league? I didn't even get into like cases of like XXY chromosomes or whatever, which happens surprisingly frequently. Mm-hmm. But the single example that it took to like shatter her worldview was De La Chapelle syndrome, which is where someone's born with an entirely male phenotype, like physical male sex characteristics, but they have XX chromosomes. And it's like under your proposed system, like this person should be competing in the female league, but like that just doesn't make sense at all. Because like they've been born a man, raised a man, they have all of the testosterone running through their system. Like your system doesn't account for this well. And then she just kept on changing her story, and I always had the counterexample to just show that why her new change system didn't work, and she just got really triggered and upset, and it was beautiful to watch everything crumble.
She's like, I have to go.
I have a question. Was she aware of the fact that chromosomal testing was thrown out by the IOC before the Sydney Games?
I believe she was aware of the fact. She kept on mentioning some poll. I don't even know where the poll was conducted, but supposedly the poll showed that like a lot of female athletes wanted sex testing to come back in some capacity. Although the specifics of the poll were never mentioned, so I couldn't find out if this was even real or if it was like kind of descriptive about how they intended to do sex testing.
Yeah.
The scientific research behind the Olympics booting the whole notion of karyotype testing.
Right, because they used to do it, and it was a
that
total failure.
it's unreliable. It's
Yeah.
expensive. It takes an awful lot to do it, and Maria Patino sued him and won.
Yeah.
And she's she's an XY. She was an XY track runner who forgot her. We covered it last week, I think.
Yeah, I forgot her.
Forgot her woman card in a meet at a meet in Tokyo, and was basically out of the sport for 2 years because born female, raised female, competed as female.
And it also makes no sense because like most intersex conditions that would cause you to be born phenotypically female but with XY chromosomes would actually like negatively impact your body's ability to either produce or utilize testosterone. So like it would literally put you at a disadvantage in like all of these cases that are coming up as essentially like false positives. And the Olympics literally abandoned this kind of chromosomal-based sex testing because it was so unreliable, and it was just outing people as intersex. And like within the culture and the time in which they did that, like outing someone as intersex was awful, and like had a ton of social cultural impacts that were horrible with how they were treated.
Well, even now, doing that to people who aren't even not even any verifiable evidence that these people are intersex, and they're and the countries that they come from are 25 years behind us, so it is illegal to it's horrible. This
and so her position was, let's do it anyway. Is that basically the drill? I'm glad you. I'm glad you.
She was like, we need to like reinstate sex testing and like protect female sport. Like she total like turf talking points along the lines, but she's really big on the chromosomes, and I'm like, we have all the evidence showing that the chromosome tests were a complete failure, and she couldn't account for that.
I mean, it always comes down to, is it assigned sex at birth or genitals, or is it chromosomes? Because you can't.
Well, she kept changing the story as soon as I showed why her system like wasn't going to satisfy her worldview.
And then she had to suddenly go, "Oh, I gotta go."
Although my favorite one, which always hammers down the turfs on this example, is eventually you'll get them to switch their system to, okay, well, it should be that nobody who's ever gone through a male puberty who has that physical advantage from going through male puberty should be allowed to play in the female league. I'm like, okay, so in that case, you should be totally fine with a trans woman who came out at a very young age, was on puberty blockers at the onset of puberty, started cross-sex hormones as soon as she could. She never went through a male puberty. She should be totally fine to compete in the female league. And then they will immediately change the story again. Like, it's not about fairness to them. It's just about they want to exclude trans women. It's just about their bigotry against trans women.
The goalposts are where they need them to be, right?
And I got Sharon with that exact example, and she acted exactly how you expect.
Well, I knew that there were XX chromosome males. I didn't know what the syndrome was called. I think is that the only one? There's XXY males too, aren't there?
Yeah, that's the XXY is Klinefelter. XX male is de la Chapelle syndrome.
Okay, and both of those are they both?
It was so funny when I mentioned the de la Chapelle syndrome case. She was like, "No, that doesn't exist. I know all the intersex conditions."
Yeah, I know.
Literally, here is the Wikipedia article for you. Can Google it yourself.
Can people with that I'm gonna butcher Dion Chapelle syndrome? Are they fertile? Can they have...
I think maybe sometimes
through like assisted.
It might be like through IVF.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think when I was looking at it, when I heard you talk about it said something like that, but I couldn't remember if maybe that was the Klinefelters that had that, because I know they have fertility trouble too. Well, a lot of intersex conditions are going to have fertility trouble, just based on the fact that it's an intersex condition. But the thought that people can be lumped into this camp and that camp and that's it, that's just I'll hear people I've known for years. Richard Dawkins is one that comes to mind that I've known for years and followed for years as rational people suddenly are consuming the brain rot of spectrums don't exist in this matter. Nope, it's a strict binary. When it's clearly not. When it's clearly not just that it's not, that it's multifaceted. It's a multifaceted spectrum. So that means there's all these facets that have their own spectrum of what builds your identity, you know, and
yeah. I'm finding that they're usually infertile, but there might be like some cases where like if a certain gene gets translocated correctly, then they might be able to do some fertility treatments.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Before we get, because I probably want to let you go here in just a few minutes, but because we gotta get the Ember segment. But I wanted to talk about your recent operation.
Yeah,
Okay.
I recently had an orchiectomy done, and for those that aren't aware, that's removing the testicles. Just I'm winning No Nut November this year, so yeah.
So I have a question for you. Were they remarkable?
They were unremarkable. I got the prognosis report. It was so horrible to receive that news, that diagnosis. I got diagnosed with unremarkable testicles.
Yeah, so you might as well get rid of them. Unremarkable.
Yeah, so, at that point, just take them, you know.
Yeah. So, what was and Steph had bottom surgery decades ago, so I would like to know maybe if there's been some advancements in the processes that you all might.
Yeah, well, as far as I know, like the orchiectomy, it's a super simple procedure. I mean, we've been doing it for like a really, really long ass time, like thousands of years. I mean, like literally, you can look at like the historical texts about eunuchs. Like these were people that were assigned male at birth that would remove their testicles. And so like this kind of procedure has been around for a super long time. These days, it's mostly performed on cis-men to treat like prostate cancer or testicular cancer. And like it's pretty much the exact same procedure in a trans woman. There's just like a couple things you want to be more aware of in a trans woman where they might have more like atrophy down there. And so some things might be a little bit more like tightly packed together. And so they kind of need to snip the little cords inside up a little bit higher for a trans woman on average. But that's really about the only difference. So it's a very well-known procedure, super easy, outpatient. Like I went into the hospital in that morning. They had the procedure done within like a couple hours of me getting there. And just like another, like say 30 minutes after that, I was out the door with a prescription for some pain meds. And I was not in any pain after they gave me more pain meds in the hospital. It was super easy, super simple. You're back up and moving within the same week of the surgery. Really, it's only like the first like couple days to week where it's more so like you have to avoid straining just so that things recover as best they can. It's not because you're not physically able to do like it's the kind of recovery that's so easy. You have to work to not overstrain yourself because it might make recovery a little bit more complicated. Yeah, if anybody's had like a vasectomy, the recovery is basically identical to a vasectomy, if not a little bit easier. Because with the vasectomy, you got some things that are kind of hanging there still and kind of tugging on the surgical wounds. But with the orchi, it's even easier than a vasectomy to recover from.
So they didn't really need to keep my dog overnight.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, I actually went and got a vasectomy a couple years back, and yeah, that was
congratulations.
Like, yeah, I have 3 kids is enough. Of course, then I got people telling me now that trans people don't have kids. LGBTQ people they recruit, they don't breed. It's like, bitch, I have three biological children. What the fuck are you talking about? It's ridiculous. It's like being bisexual doesn't exist or something in these people's worlds, or
right? Everything I disagree with doesn't exist.
Right? Or it's communism. It's Marxism. Mm-hmm. This gender stuff is Marxism.
Really, it's really both, you know?
Yeah.
Because communism has never existed.
Excuse me. So when did you realize you were a communist?
It was probably when I woke up from the orchiectomy. I had like a really personal message I received from Joe Biden telling me to enact my communist agenda now that I've been, fully transgenderized, and I'm just going with it.
That
seems pretty cool.
She's following the agenda.
My own personal copy of the trans agenda from Joe Biden himself.
Downloaded right into the brain. Well, I really appreciate you coming on tonight, Naomi. we just started this channel just a couple months in, so we don't get a huge following, but we're starting to get some traction, and we'd like to
Very
have
cool, very fun.
yeah, I'd like to have some guest hosts on to talk about whatever subject we have pulled up. I want to try to make that more the thing, so we would love to have you back on.
Yeah, I mean, if you have something that's like particularly relevant to anything that I've been involved in, like absolutely hit me up.
Hell yeah! All right. Okay.
Super. It's been great having you here.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's been wonderful to be here. It's just awesome to see like trans elders and trans people in general just like vibing and really like making our own space. Like, love to see it. Love to see it.
All right. Well, live audience, stick around for Ember in just a couple of minutes. We're going to go to another quick intermission, and that'll be right back with you. But I do want to let Miss Naomi have the final word. So really appreciate you here. Real quick, anything coming up in the near future that you would like to share?
Oh, I have a lot of secret things in the works, so still trying to figure out kind of like getting back into a regular stream schedule. But we have secret plans, secret projects in the works. So stay tuned. You can follow me on YouTube, Twitch, or TikTok. That's nominal.naomi. Would love to have you there, especially if you want to learn a lot more about kind of the science behind medical transition and trans people broadly. There's a lot of really cool stuff there. So please, absolutely, if you want to learn a lot from a goofball like me, check out my channel. Check out my channel.
Yeah, check out Naomi. We'll get her. I think we got her links. Maybe not. Oh shoot, no. I'll add your link to the description.
Yeah, you can just Google nominal Naomi. You'll find me. You'll find me.
She's there. All right. Thank you. All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Be back in just a moment.
If you've been enjoying our Trans People in History series, then I've got good news for you. I found a big one. And strangely, while tonight's tale does deal with history, it's also about current events. Buckle up. Good news starts right now. In 1996, Dr. Zoe Playdon and her legal team brought a judicial review case before the UK courts. They'd compiled a vast quantity of historical information showing that trans people had been able to correct our own birth certificates as a matter of course, without question in the past. The argument was that it was a matter of natural justice, if not common sense, that we ought to be able to do the same today. She was right, but they still lost the case, and nobody could tell them why. There was a reason, of course, but no one could tell them, for the same reason their judicial review hadn't turned up the obstacle that they couldn't see. Something had happened sometime in the late 1960s, and nobody involved was allowed to ever admit this invisible case had even existed. There was, however, one case that touched on trans issues that was very public, that took place shortly after the mysterious events blocking Zoe's efforts in the present, the 1970 ruling in Corbett versus Corbett. For those of you too young to remember, that was a case involving an English lord who married a trans woman, knowing perfectly well her medical history, which was no big deal at the time, and not a legal barrier either. You may recall the story of Bridget Bond, who was briefly engaged to an English noble in 1966. Her transness was not only public knowledge, but part of her fame, and the only reason her engagement had to be called off was because of a legal requirement that her betrothed must produce an heir. A sterile cis woman would have hit the same roadblock. The case of the Corbetts wasn't like that. The couple were married in 1963, and Lord or no, neither the courts nor the church had any problem at all with the bride being a trans woman. As Dr. Playdon noted, in the past, trans people had full equality insofar as they had the same rights and recognition as any other member of their gender. A trans man could get credit in his own name without question. A trans woman would lose that ability the moment she made her status official. Things were not equal, only that trans people were fully accepted as the gender they were, with no hesitation or reservation by literally anyone. You might be surprised to learn that the world didn't end. Sports didn't implode, and women weren't erased from existence. For literally hundreds of years, nobody cared, and there were no problems because of it. Trans people were just there. Banal. Almost boring. But I do digress. The Corbett marriage had broken down, and by 1967, Lord Corbett needed a way to divorce his wife, April. The options at the time were rather limited. There wasn't any no-fault divorce or long-term separation or irreconcilable differences. He couldn't prove infidelity, so he needed a way to annul the whole thing. What made the case famous is the way he went about that. He argued that in spite of the weight of centuries of legal precedent, a trans woman ought to be considered a male for the purposes of marriage. Since a male couldn't be married to a male at that time, his marriage had to be invalid. The judge in the case heard from a number of experts and determined that there are 3 factors, what he called biological criteria, that determine sex in a legal context, specifically with regards to marriage. Those biological criteria were chromosomes, gonads, and genitals. As nobody had ever checked Mrs. Corbett's karyotype, very few brides ever do this even today, the point of chromosomes was no help. Things went downhill from there. Being post-sex reassignment, Mrs. Corbett had no gonads at all, removing that element from consideration, and she had the genitals of a female. The only thing the court could consider by its own determination was solidly in favor of April's legal femininity. Determined to serve Lord Corbett's will, however, the judge had to get a little creative. According to Dr. Pladen, His Honor seized on the fact Mrs. Corbett was trans and used that to simply declare her mentally ill. That meant she was therefore not competent to enter into a marriage contract. And as she had been trans throughout the entire marriage, the whole thing was null and void. Yeah, he ignored his own criteria, and in doing so set a precedent that effectively stripped thousands of people of rights they had enjoyed for generations without any problems. Stripped them of the soundness of their very minds from a legal perspective overnight. Worse, that decision became a super precedent, being cited in cases internationally and for years to come. From the United States to Australia to South Africa, dozens of countries jumped right on board. So, what the hell happened? Why did the judge set aside the criteria he'd gone to all the trouble to determine just to hand down a ruling clearly outside the scope of the information and evidence? What caused this sudden shift in the way the law was motivated to view trans people? To answer that, we have to go a little farther back in time to the trans man whose story I'd set out to tell when I found myself sucked into this vortex of mystery and intrigue. Meet Sir Ewan Forbes. Born September 6th, 1912, he was an accidental Scottish noble, an intentional physician, and a lifelong trans man. In early childhood, he rejected all things feminine and preferred the company of his cousins Patrick and David to that of his sisters. He dressed as a boy unless forced to do otherwise, and he went to extreme lengths to avoid those occasions. As the youngest, he stood no chance to inherit, but had always wanted to become a physician, a healer, a person who could help people like him have an easier time than he was having. However, he refused to go to boarding school, where he'd be compelled to live as a girl, and so his mother arranged for tutors to school him at home. So things went throughout his childhood. Like parents of trans kids today, his mother was concerned about the possibility her son might be forced to go through the wrong puberty. When he turned 15, she conspired with him to nominally find a pre-university course he could attend overseas so that he could study as a male, but in reality, they would tour some of the continental medical facilities that today we would call gender clinics. Together, they traveled to Dresden, Prague, Vienna, and Paris. Not only did he find hormone therapy, first widely available in 1920, but he did obtain an education as well. During his years abroad, besides becoming well-rounded academically and picking up several languages along the way, he also studied the harp at the Paris Opera, became a public reciter of poetry, and thanks to his smooth, deep voice, landed a recording contract to read some famous verses, and he eventually found himself leading a troupe of dancers that, owing to a mostly female membership, required many women to adopt male roles for performances. That was an especially clever solution to a problem Ewan sometimes faced. As a member of high society, he was expected to dress as a woman for social events. As a member of the dance troupe, however, he got away with wearing the garb of a woman who happened to be dressed as a man for the legitimate purposes of dance performance. By 1933, he was studying psychology in Munich. He was there for the nationalist seizure of power, the subsequent post hoc elections, and the violent purge of the leftist partisans that would foreshadow the extreme violence yet to come in Germany. Fortunately, he didn't stay much longer, because unfortunately, in 1934, his father passed, and while his elder brother William inherited the family's titles and lands generally, the late lord did leave a sizable estate to Ewan, who returned home to be a laird, rocking a kilt 24/7 and using his command of languages to overemphasize the Doric twang of the North. He was quite happy in this life for several years, but still hadn't fulfilled his childhood dream of becoming a physician. So in 1939, he went back to school, locally so that he could mind the farm at the medical school of the University of Aberdeen. He graduated in 1944, helped the Army finish up the war, then opened a general practice in 1945. He also found himself the proud surrogate of a gaggle of German POWs. Since he was a registered physician, an officer, and spoke their language, his assistance in the post-war years was of great service to the Crown. In 1952, he had a mind to get married to the co-leader of his old dance troupe, so he made his legal status official by simply requesting re-registration of his birth, updating both his name and sex. Because that's how it was done at the time. In her book about the subject, Dr. Playden writes the typical process for trans people was, quote, take hormones, have gender confirmation surgery, and then change their birth certificates. There were no panels of psychiatrists and endocrinologists deciding whether to grant you a gender recognition certificate. There was no need. You could simply change your birth certificate, and from that, go on to update any other necessary paperwork. Ewan followed that path, and only as each step became necessary. The testosterone once he reached puberty, the legal paperwork only when it came time to marry, not even when he inherited. He didn't have to otherwise. He was simply accepted as the man he was. It's not known if he ever even bothered with surgery. And it all went just fine. That was until his brother William passed without offspring in 1965. As the only surviving child, both of his sisters having passed previously, Ewan stood to inherit all the family's titles. However, a cousin named John noticed that one title, a baronetcy, included a primogeniture requirement, meaning it could only be passed to a male heir. If John could render Ewan's claim to male status invalid, then John would stand to inherit. At William's funeral, John confronted Ewan and told Ewan that he'd challenge the succession because Ewan wasn't a real man. Now, until the mid-1960s, doctors largely regarded trans people as intersex, as what was evident at the time and continues to become increasingly evident as medical technology advances. We undeniably have physiological characteristics of both sexes. As with other intersex people, until that period, physicians were typically content to let us inform them of where we belonged and provide what support they could. But along came these American psychiatrists, particularly an arrogant hotshot by the name of John Money. That's a name you've probably heard. He's the guy infamous for advising one couple to raise one of their twin sons who, due to a botched circumcision, had an irreparably damaged penis as a girl. The Reimer twins. Yes, there is the dangerous permanent genital mutilation on kids who can't consent. Circumcision. It turns out the transphobes don't actually care about kids either. Are you surprised? So, Money's hypothesis was that gender was entirely based on social conditioning. Nothing biological, neurological, anything else. It's just how we're raised, exclusively, according to him. He could have falsified that idea by studying any of the trans people who had lived very publicly that we've covered on this channel. But he wanted to do his own experiment. As all who know this story are all too aware, John Money was wrong. David Reimer insisted he was a boy until the age of 14 when his therapist advised his parents to just tell him the truth. When they did, David expressed great relief, as having everyone in his life tell him he was delusional and was clearly a girl made him think he was crazy. The experiment and other things John Money had done had left irreparable psychological damage, however, and both brothers ended up self-deleting a couple of years apart later in life. The vile experiment with the Reimer twins proved that one's sense of gender is innate, and no matter how many people tell you otherwise, no matter what your biology seems to indicate, you feel what you feel. Contrary to popular belief, Money and his cronies didn't invent the concept of trans people. They were out to reclassify us as mentally ill. Despite being wrong about the innate nature of gender, wrong about the effectiveness of conversion therapy, wrong about psychosis, delusion, and everything else Money and his colleagues tried while they gleefully ignored the physical differences medical researchers had been aware of for generations, they still managed to influence the field in incredibly destructive ways, many of which are still plaguing us to this day. Ewan's cousin John happened to know John Money and his ilk, and was convinced he could use Money's ideas in court to prove that Ewan was a fraud as a man, that he was mentally ill, and that his marriage, on the theory that Ewan was not male, was an actual crime. He'd be imprisoned. He'd be struck from the medical register. His marriage would be erased. Ewan stood to lose everything. At first, Ewan offered to give John all the estates just to keep his own life and be left alone. That wasn't enough for John. So, Ewan fought. He used his family's name. He used his knowledge of physical medicine. He probably used dirty tricks. I'm waiting for another book to come in to learn about the details here, but the outcome is Ewan won. But cousin John had set in motion a chain of events that would lead to catastrophe. You see, in the United Kingdom, nothing matters more than succession. Not a Scottish lord's life, not even a publicly beloved princess's life, and certainly not a few thousand commoners. So what if one northern lord happened to be a trans man? No big deal, right? Well, what if the Prince of Wales came out as a trans woman? The crown was also subject to primogeniture at the time, so maleness was of critical importance to the stability of the entire government. For very stupid reasons, but still, there it was. What would happen if a crown prince's older sister came out as a trans man and put herself ahead of the heir apparent in the succession? You, being a sensible person, might come to the sensible conclusion that simply doing away with the ridiculous rule of primogeniture would solve the problem. But because you're a sensible person, you're forgetting something very important. Patriarchy. Sexism isn't sensible, but men who will do anything to possess power don't really care about that. Ewan had won his case and went on to live happily ever after, but the peerage was terrified. To rectify the situation as best they could, whilst in the midst of an existential panic, they directed that the case be sealed, hidden, and its very existence denied, and all involved were sworn to total secrecy. Nobody must ever know. Not ever. The second step was to delegitimate trans people so that a similar problem could never crop up again. So the following year, the aristocracy invited Dr. John Money to come to London for the first international symposium on gender identity. By the following year, when the Corbett case was decided, the psychiatrists at the NHS had overruled the physicians and decided that being trans, like being homosexual, was probably a mental illness. And they were just getting started with working out the therapies to cure us. In the years to come, trans people would be subject to horrors beyond measure, from the actual torture of aversion therapy to forced sterilization and more. And they endured it because, as bad as all that was, being forced to live as someone you aren't is worse. Much of that is still hanging over us today, along with a sizable chunk of the public who continues to view us as mentally ill, as sexual threats, or as subhuman. In many places, we can still be fired or evicted with no notice or reason. In 30 U.S. states, we can be murdered, and as long as our killers say they were trans, they stand a good chance of getting a reduced sentence or getting off entirely. It didn't used to be that way. It doesn't have to be this way. But almost nobody knows the real history of why it is this way, because the story was hidden very deliberately by very powerful people. To this day, a motion is proposed in the English Parliament to remove primogeniture from inheritance law almost every year. And every time it is brought to a vote, it is killed immediately. As much as things have changed, the patriarchy, which supports the hierarchy that keeps the aristocracy on top, will not allow even the chance of women entering their club. Ewan's case remained sealed until after his death in 1991, and for years later until the primogeniture rule for the crown was changed. And even after that, Dr. Playdon had to beg, borrow, and pull several political strings to gain access to even partial records. She spent years digging and was only able to publish the first record of what happened to Ewan Forbes in 2021. That is the book I have on order. This complex web of scandal and genocide is just the tip of the iceberg. The information I've presented tonight comes from scraps of articles, public talks, and offhand mentions, and other fragmentary sources I've put together the best I can. So, friends, now you know a lot more than you probably bargained for this evening. And maybe the world looks a little darker than it had before you tuned in. But the good news is this. There is a saying, a lie can make it around the world before the truth even gets its boots on. But there is another saying that rather goes along with that. No matter how long it takes, the truth will get out. As journalists, that's kind of our thing. If you enjoy content like this, make sure to subscribe. Support our work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/TheTransPositions and reap heaps of benefits. Our meme of the week was posted by Maya Adkisson. And if you want to ridicule the basic biology bandwagon, join us on Discord. Also, if you have good news concerning trans people you'd like to see reported on, you can tell us about it in the Discord as well. For the Transpositions, I've been Ember Belrad.
Hi, everybody. Stephanie here. Got a couple of stories for you this week. Carly's not with us this week, so unfortunately, but she's moving, so she's kind of busy. She's moving over a 5-day stretch, so was unable to join us tonight, so you get me. I have two stories. One that's kind of bad news from Texas, and another that's pretty good news from my neighboring state up here in the northeast corner of the country, the state of New Hampshire. Live free or die. And fortunately, I'm really kind of happy about the news from next door. But let's get started with the bad news in Texas. And this is a story from the Texas Tribune that broke on the 21st of August. Let me see. Let me just get this thing up here. I'll switch you over here. And need to move things around just a wee bit. Let's see. No, not that one. Bear with me for just a sec. I need to move this guy just a little bit to fit everything in. Here we go. And the title of the story is Queer Students Look for Alternatives After Texas A&M Ends Transgender Healthcare Services. Which kind of sucks for those kids. Queer students look for, The students saw the move as part of a political environment that has become increasingly hostile against LGBTQ plus people in Texas. And, I want to give all kinds of kudos to the Texas Tribune for leading this story off with a just this in italics thing here for mental health support for LGBTQ youth. Call the Trevor Project. 24/7 toll-free support line at 866-488-7386 for trans peer support. Call the Trans Lifeline at 877-565-8860. You can also reach a trained crisis counselor through the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline by calling or texting 988. And it's so important that particularly with bad news stories like this, that these lifelines are available to the people affected. So let's run down through this. Juniper Danielson, a former Texas A&M student who received hormone replacement therapy through the university, recalled how easy the process was, especially after spending years on a wait list for an endocrinologist in the Houston area, where she is from. Danielson and Mattia Klatt, a current student who also benefited from the service, said getting transition-related care on campus started with an information session in which a doctor explained potential risks, health changes, and where am I? And personal medical considerations. After understanding and agreeing to those terms, they took blood tests to confirm suitability for the treatment. Informed consent was crucial, Klatt and Danielson said. But getting gender transitioning care is no longer possible after the university suspended those services on August 1st. In response to questions about why A&M discontinued the medical care, a university spokesman said its growing student population and the resultant strain on the AP Butel Health Center require officials to continuously review the services after they offer and how they use the center's resources. The spokesperson noted that the university has invested more in mental health care following a national rise in college students seeking it out. Transgender and queer students are skeptical of that explanation and believe the university acted in response to the pressure from conservative groups. They say the move shows the university is not willing to support them equally. I smell a lawsuit coming. It just seems they don't take the same level of care to address the concerns of the queer community as they would other communities, Klatt said. Students saw the move as part of a political environment that has become increasingly hostile against LGBTQ plus people in Texas, and it comes as the state's public universities face top-down pressure to appease Republican leaders or risk incurring their wrath during next year's legislative session. For Danielson and Klatt, no more access to transition-related care at the university means students will lose more than their prescriptions. It means no more access to medical professionals on campus and on call. It means no more easily available blood tests. It means discontinuing the physical and mental changes that hormone replacement therapy provides. Losing the care means that you have to look at yourself and see someone that you're not anytime you look in the mirror, Danielson said. It's hard to go back after having access to just being yourself. HRT was a novel service for a university in 2012 when A&M started offering it. 6 other Texas public universities with health clinics confirmed to the Texas Tribune that they do not provide transition-related care. Several others did not directly confirm or deny it. The University of Houston says it doesn't offer such care but provides primary and psychiatric services and refers student patients to specialty services. A&M informed students on July 1st that it would stop offering transition-related services a month before the change went into effect. To CLAT, that was a short window of time for these students, especially for those who might not be on campus during the summer. To find different healthcare options. The care the university provided was cheap, even without insurance, CLAT said. Pardon me. Now she has to quickly find care elsewhere. She's working with a virtual Planned Parenthood to get help. Planned Parenthood in Bryan, one of the 2 cities that house the A&M system flagship, closed over a decade ago. I'm going to tie this into abortion. Planned Parenthood has been on the forefront of healthcare for trans people, for women generally. And in states like Texas, they've been under attack for a very long time. It just hurts, CLAT said. I'm stressed out about finding a new provider, and it's also just disappointing. In an email, Tiffany Skaggs, a senior director with A&M's Health Services, said, students who needed to transition to a different healthcare option for hormone replacement therapy can call her department for assistance in getting alternative care. That's good. But Kenna Ashen with the Queer Empowerment Council on LGBTQ plus student group at A&M said finding alternatives is no easy task. Recent anti-trans legislation in the state has forced transition-related care providers to shut down or move elsewhere. The places trans students can go for care are now limited and overwhelmed, with waiting lists that stretch for months. They're turning it into England. Texas A&M is directly harming the mental and physical health of its student body, the Queer Empowerment Council said in a statement condemning the university's decision to discontinue the services. The group started a petition to reinstate A&M's transition-related quick care that has collected about 675 signatures. Sophia Ahmed, a doctoral student of material science, I'm going to skip down a wee bit. Now we're getting into outside pressures. Texas lawmakers proposed a series of bills aimed at LGBTQ people last year. While many failed, new restrictions on drag shows, transition-related care for minors passed. We've said here on the Transpositions quite a bit that particular camel's nose under that particular tent was going to lead to things like this, to lead to people of age, past the age majority, having their care curtailed dramatically. And here we are. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has also zeroed in on queer issues. He sued the Biden administration earlier this summer over a federal rule that would force states to fund and require healthcare providers to perform transition-related procedures under Medicaid. This month, a Texas federal judge ruled in Paxton's favor in a different suit against the Biden administration. This is the Title IX stuff. The Attorney General argued against administration's efforts to extend anti-discrimination protections to LGBTQ plus students. The whole environment of the country right now is scary, sad, and disappointing. After passing a 2021 law that requires K through 12 transgender students to only participate on sports teams that match their sex on their birth certificate, lawmakers approved similar legislation for colleges this year. Told you. Another law required public universities to close their diversity, equity, and inclusion offices and programs. This measure led A&M to quietly close its Pride Center late last year and replace it with a Student Life office. Queer Empowerment Council has taken on many of the Pride Center's previous responsibilities, including hosting a graduation ceremony for queer students and supporting new students in their transition to college life. Before A&M ceased offering transition-related care, the conservative website Texas Scorecard published an article that called out the Queer Empowerment Council for a presentation on how to obtain HRT. Texas Scorecard is the media wing of Empower Texans, a hardline conservative group that holds sway with Texas politicians. Last month, this university's student newspaper published 2 emails alumni sent to the A&M System's Board of Regents, Chancellor, and the university's president, speaking against trans-related health care. One was sent by Dr. Matt Poling, a private practice family medicine physician, assistant professor at Texas A&M Health Science Center, and president of the Rudder Association, an alumni group that, along with Texas Scorecard, criticized journalism professor Kathleen McElroy preceding last year's scandal over the university's botched attempt to hire her. Poling's letter casts transition-related care as, quote, unproven medical interventions. Neuropsychologist Clifford Hopewell, another A&M alumnus and former president of the Texas Psychological Association, sent the other letter. He said HRT was, quote, malpractice, unquote, and that the university was opening itself up to lawsuits by providing transition-related care. Neither Hopewell nor Poling responded to requests for comment. Now, here we have the response from the medical boards responsible for certifying physicians and practitioners in psychology around these issues. Hope Hani Tolebi, the current president of the Texas Psychological Association, said Hopewell's statement is not endorsed by the association. Tolebi said that the TPA aligns itself with the American Psychological Association, the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the American Psychiatric Association, all of which endorse unobstructed access to transition-related care. She could also have cited the Endocrine Society, also publicly accessible standards of best practices when dealing with trans people and their medical care. An A&M spokesman, wrapping this up, spokesperson said the Texas Scorecard article and the alumni letters did not influence the university's decision to end transition-related services. I have a bridge in Brooklyn. I'd like to sell you. Texas, you can and should do better with your attorney general, with your governor, with your senators, with your representatives. Be better. Be like a judge in New Hampshire who had this to say about that state's recent similar legislation. Got to do a little reframing here just a wee bit. We covered one of these girls a couple of weeks ago, I think 3 weeks ago, I think, on right here on the Transpositions. Judge allows transgender New Hampshire girl to play soccer as lawsuit challenges new law. This is the good news. This is stories from the AP. Was published on, I believe, the 19th. Yeah, updated 5:20 p.m. August 19th, 2024. A federal judge temporarily cleared the way Monday for a transgender girl to play soccer for her high school team while she and another student challenged a New Hampshire ban. The families of Parker Terrell, 15, and Iris Turmel, 14, filed a lawsuit Friday seeking to overturn the, quote, Fairness in Women's Sports Act that Republican Governor Chris Sununu signed into law last month. While Turmel doesn't plan to play sports until December, Terrell sought an emergency order allowing her to start soccer practice Monday evening. There's Parker. See if I can frame her a little bit better. There's Iris. Parker and Iris want to play with their friends. Get back down to the story. U.S. District Court Chief Judge Londia McCafferty granted the request with just hours to spare, finding that Terrell had demonstrated likely success on the merits of the case. The two sides now have 14 days to schedule a hearing on the plaintiff's broader notion for a preliminary order blocking the state from enforcing the new law while the case proceeds. The lawsuit said the law violates constitutional protections and federal laws because the teens are being denied access, equal educational opportunities, and are being discriminated against because they are transgender. The judge questioned how the law, as applied to Terrell, would protect girls from unfair competition, given the state isn't contesting evidence that she has no physiological advantage after taking puberty-blocking medication, GnRH agonists, to prevent bodily changes such as muscle development. McCafferty also found Terrell had proven that she would suffer irreparable harm without it, and other criteria for emergency relief. And the irreparable harm that she would suffer has to do with more than her ability to play footy. It has to do with her ability to live her life as the person she is. And people who tell me that sports don't matter, they do. They do. Michael DeGrandis, an attorney for the state, argued that missing soccer practice, while stressful, didn't meet that standard. But the girl's lawyer disagreed, saying it would have a permanent stigmatizing impact. Of course it would. Remember high school? We're very happy with the judge's order. It is also what we expected because we know that this law is unfair and violates the rights of transgender girls in New Hampshire. Chris Urkel, an attorney at GLBTQ Legal Associates and Defenders, said after the hearing, the rights of transgender people, and especially young people, have become a major political battleground in recent years. As trans visibility has increased, most Republican-controlled states have banned gender-affirming health care for transgender minors, and several have adopted policies limiting which school bathrooms trans people can use and barring trans girls from some sports competitions. So that is good news from my neighboring state of New Hampshire, just across the Piscataqua River Bridge, down 45 miles south of here. Live free or die, it's the state motto. And to quote an old Sunvolt song, these folks are looking for the right kind of live free or die. They want to live free. They want to live. And for the TransPositions sports, I remain Stephanie Helms. Thanks for your attention.
All right. I'm going to turn my light back on. Real quick, I almost forgot I wanted to cover something before the show was over, so bear with me. We are
buckle up, folks. This is going to be a bad one.
We have to. When we use TransPositions over the last few months. Have used several resources. Some of my favorites are Ari Drennan and Aaron Reed. Steph, your favorites? I know you have.
I wander all over the place. Ari's terrific. Aaron is obviously terrific. My a lot of go-tos. I go to Caitlin Burns, who is her writing has been featured on MSNBC. She's written for a number of other publications as a freelancer as well. There are just so many great trans journalists out there. Frankie de la Cortaz is wonderful in sports. There's just tons of them out there, and we wouldn't be able to do what we do here if those
Without
folks
them,
weren't
yeah, they
doing the hard work.
This is,
and of course, Carly Chardonnay Webb, who we do have the privilege of having with us most weeks. So,
well, I mean, Ember's quite the sleuth too. Ember brings us the history, but yeah, when it comes to these journalists, though, follow their Substacks. Throw money at their Substacks. Don't follow these magazines or news magazines. What do they call them? What we're talking about today at the end of the show here, just real quick, because we want to cover this, is this Pink News business. So we've used Pink News as a resource before on episodes and stuff, because they cover some trans issues they have in the past. But apparently they're kind of backpedaling on this. It says Pink News CEO Benjamin Cohen refusing to campaign on trans issues ahead of the election, dismissing them as incredibly contentious and insisting that they're different to the equal marriage fight. He doesn't want Pink News to be seen as some sort of charity for the trans community. Do you have to take my word for it?
do you have the audio? Do you have the audio on this guy with this guy going on? Because holy
see.
Moses!
Let's see if we can crack that. Oh, no.
Things that relate to trans and non-binary remain incredibly contentious. I think that the marriage, the idea, and we're celebrating 10 years of same-sex marriage this year, I think that the society has moved on and it has been generally accepted. And while, yes, when we were doing it, it was contentious, I think that the other things are even more contentious than that was then, and are significantly contentious now, and there is significant brand and partner nervousness around that topic. And so, in my view, they are different things. I think that we just have to be careful, and it's like, that's for others to do. And also the business can't afford to do that. It's the role of others to seek to change narratives. If we start doing too many things, I think it will harm the conversations with advertisers for other things, because it gives the perception that Pink News is something different to it is. What we are is an entertainment content powerhouse. We don't want to be positioning ourselves as some sort of like charity.
But yeah, there are a couple other things. This is nothing new actually over at Pink News. A lot of the previous things that have gone down over there, and I know that a lot of people in the queer community have looked at Pink News and said, "Hey, well, these guys are really supportive in all of this." But on the 29th of May of this year, the same site that we got this from, Pink News Whistleblowers, it's like these guys, it's like, here's the board, their executives: Benjamin Cohen, the founder; Anthony James, Benjamin's husband; Andrew Millett, the family friend. All right, we got CEO, COO, Chief Financial Officer, Richard Cohen, their dad. Benjamin's papa is the general counsel. So we've got it's a family affair. It's a family affair. So it's like this is somewhat of a nepotistic thing. And then on the 27th of July, Pink News CEO Benjamin Cohen told senior managers to be careful when hiring neurodiverse employees because they could use their disabilities as an excuse for poor performance. And it would be hard to fire them due to employment laws. So these people are real sweethearts. And then there's this. Throw the trans community under the bus. because they endanger us as a media powerhouse, entertainment powerhouse. God knows we wouldn't want the trans people to screw up the entertainment. Thanks, Ben.
Well, they looks like the trolls have found us. Too bad you guys didn't catch the beginning of the show. We had Naomi. She would have ragdolled you idiots. But they've also found our Discord server. So calling all hands on deck for the Discord server, please. We have like full-on Chud invasion. And
Great.
Trying to police it by myself.
Oh, goody.
And like
I guess I better
in every channel. So yeah, we're gonna have to deal with that. Anyway, I guess that means we made it big. Go away, silly little chuds. Nobody cares what you think here. We're voting you away. Go hide back under your rocks. You don't matter anymore.
Well, looks like our mods need some
go away. All right.
Need some elevated privileges.
Yeah, let's close out the show here though. That's all I had for tonight.
That's all I got. Thanks everybody for coming. Help us out over on the Discord server. Tell these people to go F away, and enjoy the resources that we've put together over there.
Yep.
We appreciate your being here on the channel and your support.
Especially to our amazing moderation team, Sumami, Jay,
Maya,
Kalasia, Maya. Thank you guys so much, and hopefully you'll be able to get us helped out here in the server as well. All right, much love. This has been the Transpositions, and good night.
How big is her cock? Describe her cock. How big is her cock? Describe her cock. I mean, what kind of a cock is it? Well, how big is it? I forget what the original question was, but I think it's describe that cock.
Why?
You've seen her cock. What, was it big? But what was it big? Well, I don't want to see. Was it big? What was it big? Was it big? Describe that cock. What was it big? Was it big? Describe that cock. How big is her cock? You've seen her cock, right? How big is her cock? Well, how big is it? Describe that cock. How big is her cock? I mean, what kind of a cock is it? How big is her cock? How big is her cock? Was it big? Describe that cock.